All right. Man, as soon as I start filming, something floats in my damn eye. All right. Wanted to make this video real quick. I was just going back watching the previous video that I made, and it just got me thinking about the trail and just, about all the videos that other people have made, the little tips and hints and, stories that they share. And I just wanted to say something that I actually haven't seen many people talk about, or at least not the way I'm about to talk about it. Um, but shelters. Um, or actually, what I'll say this video will be more about the day in the life of a through hiker. And the first thing you're going to do is you wake up. You figure out. I mean, you're obviously going to pack everything up. You're going to get dressed. If I always slept in the wet clothes because it was more comfortable than having to put wet clothes back on the next morning, and my body heat would help to dry the clothes. So that's a little tip, if you want to call it that. Um, but you're gonna pack your stuff up. You're gonna have everything unloaded the night before, so you're gonna have to pack everything up. The best you can while you're in your tent, because you're gonna want to wait until the last minute to step out, either in the heat or the cold or the rain. So you're gonna have everything packed up the best way you can, and then it's like, then you step out of your tent, and you're like, you get moving. Especially if it's raining. Um, because the last, you just want to hurry up and get your tent packed up and get everything put away so that you can start moving, because as soon as you open up the doors and step out, if it's cold or raining or whatever, you're freezing instantly. But what you're going to do before you do any of that is you're going to actually look in your AWOL guidebook. You're going to open up your Guthook or your companion, if some people use whatever it was called, the something or other companion book, Apple, whatever. Or I would use AWOL and uh, Guthook. They each have their pros and cons, and they each complement one another greatly. Worth the money for sure. But anyway, you're going to figure out where you're trying to get to. Now, my point of this video mainly, or what made me think about making this video, is what I'm about to say. When you get out there, don't be too concerned about where you have to get to. Where am I going to go? Trust me. That's one thing I noticed looking back, is that I didn't hear many people talk about it. Everybody talks about, yeah, you're going to have your shelters, average once every 10 miles. Sometimes they're going to be 5 miles. Sometimes they're going to be 15 miles. But they're usually about every 10 miles. That is true. But you don't have to stay in shelters. Very rarely did I stay at a shelter. Very rarely. I stayed at a shelter in the Smokies because you had to, and because I went through there and it fucking pissed rain for like 7 days, however long, 5 days, whatever it took me to get through there. That was freaking miserable. No views. Clingman's Dome was a freaking whiteout. It was all a whiteout. That sucked. But there's plenty of views, so it's like eventually you're gonna get a nice view. McAfee Knob was beautiful, but sorry, freaking congested, and freaking coming down with something. Um, but yeah, don't worry about the shelters. Like, the way I did it was I would get up in the morning. I'd probably already figured it out the night before. I mean, when you hike, you're not figuring out just where you're going to go that day. You're figuring out where you're going to go that day. You're comparing it to where you're going to go the next day. It's like a job. Like if you were running a company, you're going to have the entire week planned out, not just one day. It's not like you're just looking at a day, the next day, and then that's it. You have to figure out where you're going to go the next day, because you might have to push a little bit harder than you would want to in order to make sure that you get closer to a water source. Or you might want to actually slack up and stop a few miles short from where you could get to, because where you could get to might not have a water source. So you wouldn't want to push past that. You'd rather stay at the water source so that you can use the water to cook and make your food, but you can also pile up, stack up on water when you leave the next day. You wouldn't want to hike past it, because you would really be fucking yourself, especially when you get further up north and the water sources, as rainy as it was, all the water sources were tainted like a son of a bitch, full of tannins. Like the water was deep yellow, like piss yellow, like you were dehydrated and just pissed into your own water bottle. Like, I'm not saying that I didn't drink it. I mean, it was, I mean, it was purified. I used Aquamir, but it's like, you do have to worry about things like that. So what I would do is I would plan, if I felt like I could get 20 miles in, I would look for a spot about 20 miles. But then I would also plan for a spot shy of that, a few miles shy, and a few miles past it. But I also knew that pretty much every half a mile, you can find a spot to camp. Like, don't forget, you're in the woods. You can camp wherever the hell you want. As long as it's level and then there's not roots and things that are going to poke through your tent, you can camp wherever you want. You don't need a shelter. So just understand that. When you first start out, you're going to be staying in shelters because it's going to be a bubble of people. No matter when you start, there's going to be a bubble of people. It's becoming such a popular thing to hike the AT that you're going to be out there with dozens, if not hundreds of people. You're gonna actually want to be pushing to try and get to a place early, because when you get there late, the whole fucking shelter site is just jam packed. And that's a pretty miserable situation when you're new to it and you don't know what you're doing and you don't really feel comfortable and you feel like everybody's looking at you and all this other shit that everybody else, by the way, is also feeling. So, anyway, you want to figure out where you're going. And then you pack your shit up and then you basically just walk. That's all you're doing. There is nothing else. You can listen to podcasts and music and things like that, but you're just walking. You're stopping at water sources and you're walking. Then you get to camp. You break everything down. You get your shit set up. You get inside your tent as comfortable as you can. Your tent, sleeping system, whatever it is, hammock, and you get yourself something to eat. But the shelter, I mean the figuring out where you're going to go, how far you're going to go, and worrying about, I have to go 15 miles to get to this shelter, but I only walked 10 today and that killed me damn near. Like, don't worry about shit like that. Like, if you're planning it now and you're like, oh my God, but what do people do? How do they figure out where they're going to go? You're in the woods. You're in the woods. You can sleep where you want. You'll find a spot. Trust me. So don't let that, and what I liked about staying on my own was I didn't have to deal with bears. I didn't have to deal with mice. I ate with my food in the tent. I used my food bag as a pillow. I never hung it. I only hung my food bag when I was in the Smokies. In the Smokies. And in the Shenandoahs, I think I threw it up on like a bear cable once or twice. Pretty much always slept with my food. I even have a YouTube video of me eating food. I'm cooking food and I'm filming out my window a bear walking through camp. He ended up tearing people's bear bags down out of trees, but he didn't even fuck with me, and I was in the middle of like nowhere compared to everybody else. Like, I was like, I'd say 300 to 400 feet away from either direction of people. Like, if I was down here, there's a group here, like a triangle, and I was like in the middle of everybody, but I was equally far away from both of them, and the bear never fucked with me, and I was like cooking, as he was coming through, or she, I'm sure it was a she, but yeah, trust me, when you get out there, you'll figure it out. None of it's a big deal. It's like starting a new job. You always have that fear when you start a type of job, like where you've never done it before. And you're like, oh man, this is going to be, I got to deal with somebody I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. It's just one after another, just some bullshit fear. And within like 3 hours of doing your job, you got it. Or within a couple days, it's like you're good. You figure it out. It becomes a routine like anything else. It's actually not, everybody acts like hiking a long distance trail is this fucking crazy thing. It's like, dude, you're just walking. I mean, people have trails 10, 15 minutes from where you live. You can probably find a trail in the woods somewhere, or a bike trail. Just go out there and hike it for 10 hours, and then that's what hiking a trail is. I have my hand resting on my freaking fat belly. Doesn't take long to put on weight either when you get back home. So that's something that you might want to remember. you got to stay very, very diligent. I expected to come home and have a place within like a month, pay off my debt, get a place, get my treadmill back, and just walk every day. And it's like, nah, it didn't work out that way. Sitting in my car, unfortunately, does. You pack on the pounds. But yeah, don't worry about the shelter. Maybe I'll make another video talking about your food and things like that. Try and find a way to spin it so that it's not just some repetitive video that 1,000 other people have made. But yeah, as far as the shelter goes, trust me, you'll probably, unless you have a fear of staying by yourself, you'll be fine. Just find a spot. There's some, and it's not, you're not just finding a spot in the woods. Like, don't make the mistake of thinking that I'm saying that you're just like walking off the trail and finding a spot. Nah, you'll see that other people have already been there. Like, people have logs sat up, so you could sit on them, flat end on top. People have little benches made, logs with one, horizontal log, resting between two Y sticks that somebody set up. There'll be fire rings made of stone. You'll see spots, where like the leaves aren't there because somebody, comes in every day or so and wipes an area out with their feet, pushes the leaves and twigs aside so they can set up a tent, and it'll be cleaner than it, somewhere right next to it. You'll look at it and be like, yeah, that's a designated campsite. It might not be on the map, but they're all over the place. You can't miss them. I mean, they're everywhere. If you need a spot to stay, all you got to do is basically walk for 15 minutes and you'll find a spot. 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Every 15 minutes to 30 minutes, you could find a spot that's a designated spot. And I'd say every 15 minutes in most places, you could find an undesignated spot that you could sleep in. That is kind of ignorant, but, I mean, depending on your situation, if you're tired, if you're hurting, whatever, if you're sick, you got to stop. You're in the woods. Don't forget that. You're in the woods. Stop wherever you want to stop. Don't let a book tell you what to do. There's actually a funny story I should tell, but my juice is already going up. I'm at 12 minutes, so. But yeah, there was a funny story of me leaving Boots Off Hostel. I think it was called Boots Off. And the trail was closed around the lake because of rainfall. And I ended up coming to a dead end. I'll continue this story on another video. Because I don't have the time on this one. But yeah, as far as this video, just don't worry too much about the shelter system. I mean, shelter locations. You'll find a spot. Trust me. When you're tired, once you're out there for a week and it hits you, it's like, I can do whatever I want. Ridge Runner's gonna come by in 2 o'clock in the morning. Nah, they're sleeping too. But yeah, it's all good. It's easy. Just get up and walk. That's all you're doing. So. See ya.